Hello, everybody. It's Bobby Piton, and today is the 22nd. It's about 4 o'clock. I just joined a minute early. You're welcome. I'm glad that you guys listened to it. I hope you find it useful and maybe it helps you make better decisions. At least that's my hope. And so thank you for chiming in. I'm going to keep it commercial free for as long as you can imagine. So anyways, I ran the math and I don't like the numbers as to how much it costs people that do want to watch what I have to say. So I figure, you know what, I'm just going to do this at no charge. And, maybe things will settle up. I'll get some new clients from my traditional business. And so I hope everybody finds it interesting. I'm talking about a topic that a lot of people are not sure what to make of it at times, which is cryptocurrency, and in particular, Bitcoin. Now, what's funny about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies and so forth is you ask a bunch of people, how they made their money in cryptocurrencies, and they sometimes they confuse luck with knowledge or skill. And let me give you an example. There's a great example that's in this book called The Intelligent Investor. And anyways, if you flip a quarter 20 times in a row, let's talk about how much you would have. So I just want you to think you flipped a quarter and you got 20 heads in a row with 50-50 odds. Okay? So let's assume every time you flipped, you doubled your money. So we're just going to start out with a single dollar. So after one flip, you're at $2. Then you're at 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256, 512, 1,024. Now it starts to get interesting. That's the first 10. 2,048, 4,096, 8,192, 16,384. 16. So now we're up to 32,000. So now we go from 32,064. We're just going to round it down. 128, 256, 512. 1 million times your dollar. So if you flip a coin 20 times in a row and you just kept doubling your money, after 20 flips, you'd have $1 million, right? Easy enough. Figure out how to flip a quarter 20 times and make $1 million. Okay. And so when I look at this stuff and I hear everybody being so excited about cryptos and, it's going to hit for them and it's going to turn into this thing where it's $1 million a share, right? That's the new thing. So whoever's calling for that $1 million, I can't help but think they're thinking it's going to go from 60 to 1.2 to 2.48 to 5 to $1 million. So they're thinking there's going to be another 4 or 5 doubles, 128, 256, 512. Yeah, 4 doubles. So 4 more coin flips to get to $1 million. And some of the analysts that are saying this, that's essentially what they're saying. So here's one thing I want you to think about, okay? There's a link that I posted here from the Bank of International Settlements. Now, for those Bitcoin and cryptocurrency owners out there, first of all, I have no opinion, folks. I'm not buying any crypto. I'm not shorting it. But I think you guys will know by the end of this talk which way I would lean if I had to make an investment decision. I have a feeling I know which way I would lean right now. But I don't want to say it because of regulatory issues that I face being an investment advisor representative. So I'll give you the next best thing. I'll give you some humor and some things to think about. Okay. So Bank of International Settlements, no other than my favorite person at the Federal Reserve, Powell, was over, doing a broadcast today with the person in charge of the Bank of International Settlements today. And there was also, I think, the head of Deutsche Bank. Now, keep in mind, folks, Deutsche Bank has been a complete disaster. You probably lost 90% of your money since 2009 in Deutsche Bank stock, okay? Because they diluted it. You could pull up the 12, 13-year high. Deutsche Bank has been a disaster. And they did a lot of this fancy stuff, probably a bunch of different types of contracts that probably resemble some of the similarities of Bitcoin. I don't know if they do. I'm just saying it wouldn't shock me if they did. They enter into all these crazy stuff. I think it was actually Deutsche Bank. If you watch the movie The Big Short, it's probably one of the banks that got hammered on some of those bets. And I know that a lot of the European banks, as well as other major banks, if it wasn't for the federal government of the United States bailing out AIG, bailing out Goldman Sachs, bailing out all the banks, they would have been down 90% or more too, and should have probably been wiped out and recapitalized. But that's a whole nother conversation. But let's stick to the topic at hand with regards to Bitcoin. Okay, let's assume you and I, I don't know, we'll keep it real simple. I agree to clean your house. And you say, Bobby, I will give you $100 to clean my house. And then I'm like, well, how long is it going to take me? And you say 4 hours. And I say, $25 an hour. That's it? That's all I'm worth? So $25 an hour. We agree to the price. I get my $100. And so the question is, you say, Bobby, I don't have any cash. So I'm going to give you an IOU. I'm going to give you a piece of paper. I'm good for it. I'm going to make sure you get your $100. You clean my house. Okay? So I clean your house. I get this piece of paper. Now I take this piece of paper and I say, you know what? I want to get more than $100. I want to get $1,000 for it. I'm going to tell people that I digitized it. I've made it like Bitcoin. I'm like, this is unbelievable paper right here. You have no idea what this paper is worth. This is very special because the person that I cleaned their house, they only issue 10 of these. They issue 10 pieces of paper for $100 each. Don't worry about it. It's worth $1,000 because everybody's going to want to trade this piece of paper for this claim of $100. And voila, Bitcoin takes off. Now, let me explain something to you. Logically speaking, does that make any sense? If you agree to pay me $100, you give me a piece of paper, and then I go sell it on the market, and I sell $100 of value. I did 4 hours of work. Why would it go up to $200 unless the cost of cleaning your house went up to $50 an hour? Why would it go up to $1,000 unless your cost of cleaning your house went up to $250 an hour? Because it took me 4 hours to clean your house. Of course it wouldn't. It makes no sense. And what I'm trying to tell you is be careful. Just because everybody's buying it and it keeps going up, be careful. Now keep in mind, maybe Bitcoin is like digital art. Maybe people like they like the timestamp and they like all the math that goes into stamping it just right. And maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's what I'm missing. Maybe it's just beautiful art. It's art that, can be sold like a little tweet from no other than somebody who censors people, a little Jack Dorsey. So maybe that's what the intrigue of Bitcoin is. But all I could tell you is from a logical perspective, it makes no sense. So why is everything I'm saying something, that you should listen to and consider if you're looking at buying any Bitcoin, any cryptocurrencies, you're in these currencies, you want to know what you should potentially do? Well, you can pull up the report. I posted it here, Bank of International Settlements, and it talks about basically central bank CBDC, digital currency. So over 80% of the world's banks are currently looking at issuing their own cryptocurrencies. Now, I got to tell you, man, if there's a bell to be rung at the top, cryptocurrency, Bitcoin hit 61,000, and that's about 54,000. All I could tell you is 53,300 is where I would really be paying attention. I have no idea what's going to happen when it breaks to 53,300. But all I could tell you is if it goes below 53,300, it should get interesting. Which direction? I don't know. But what I will say is that the central banks, the moment they say, we are no longer going to allow any transactions to hit the financial markets that are done in these cryptocurrencies, we're issuing our own. I don't know if they have limit downs on cryptocurrencies like they do in the stock market, but you got some serious pain on your hands when that happens, because they're going to be able to say, Bobby, you have your US dollars. We're going to create a little digital timestamp on it, and you're going to be able to just quickly just transfer it to somebody else. They can transfer it to you when you earn your $100. And we're going to be able to see how much there is in the system, how much money is in the system at any one time, how much claims for unworked work there is, so that they can keep track of inflation. Now, I know there's not a lot of people that are fans of central banks. I'm not a fan of the central bank the way it's currently run. However, I am a fan of the concept of making sure that the amount of currency within a system, within a structure, the debt structure, should be somehow monitored so that we better understand what is in store for us in the future years. You can literally back out what can happen, okay? And so that's a really big deal. Now, the technology with regards to Bitcoin or Ripple or any other currencies, here's the deal. Nobody has a patent on it. It's just math. You can't patent math, people. I don't know, little known secret. You cannot patent any math. So if you've developed formulas or algorithms, you need to keep it a secret, because the moment you try to patent it, number one, the patent's not going to hold up. But number two, then everybody's going to know what you think, and they'll just change the math just a little bit to circumvent everything you're doing. So the concept of how currencies can be timed in a space and time, and how they can be kept track of in a ledger format, that's not going to change. But it's not going to change if it's the Federal Reserve or a different bank. And so, I've said this before in my other cryptocurrency clips. You need a military to support a currency. You need the rule of law. You need a nation state to control, to basically not control. I hate to use the word control, to back it up. There needs to be legal contracts. Now, you can say, Bobby, I'm going to live in a world with no legal contracts. I trust somebody in China. When they give me my crypto, I believe it's real because of all this other stuff that all these other currencies are changing hands. And I'm going to say, great. Where is it stored? It's stored in the cloud. Well, who's in charge of the cloud? What if the cloud gets corrupted? What if the cloud gets taken over by a foreign government? What are you going to do then? And so these are all things you should think about. If you don't have a nation state that ensures that the currency is going to retain its values, you have a big problem. The United States, we're 60% of the world's reserves. Why can we do that, folks? Because we have a military that spends over 60 to 70% of the world's military defense budget. That's it. You look at how much we spend worldwide in our military, we spend 60 to 70% of the entire planet's military budget. Why? Because we ensure the trade lanes of all goods and services across this planet stay open. Why do you think we're in the South China Sea? Because the South China Sea has about $5 trillion of trade that goes through it, not just from China, but because of Japan, because of all the other nations, South Korea. All these other nations ship goods through the South China Sea to the United States and other countries around the world. And if it wasn't for our military liberating Asia by, unfortunately, the Japanese, they called our bluff and they were wrong. We had to drop a bomb on them, not once, but twice, August 6th and August 9th. We said, you're going to have to scream uncle, or because we're not going to lose 1 to 2 million troops doing a land invasion. I don't regret that decision. I think it was the right decision for the United States. I've studied that history, and the Japanese were ruthless in what they did and how they would kill their own citizens. Sound familiar, folks? Sounds like China. So the Japanese were ruthless back then, and it took them until September 15th to finally surrender. But the emperor of Japan thought he was a god on earth. He thought he was a pharaoh. You can just go to Exodus if you want to find out what happens to pharaohs on this planet when they act like pharaohs. People that believe in the real God and real power take these corrupt individuals out. And I think that we'll see the same thing with China in the not too distant future. So getting back to crypto, getting back to the central bank, this technology is there. It's going to be rolled out. The price could be very significantly it could significantly change. So let me give you a couple examples. Back in 1999, 2000, we had a really big tech bubble. For those of you who weren't around, I happened to be around back then. And I actually had one of my best years. This is audited, but I'm not, first of all, I'm not telling anybody to go short anything. But, over a 12-month period, I was up 98% when everybody else was losing money in 99 or 2000, 2001. So how did I make that money, folks? That's a good question. And I could tell you what I did. What I did back then, and it's just 20 years ago, mind you. This is just for educational purposes. But 20 years ago, the world was off its rocker. And you can buy, if you took a company that was publicly traded and you invested it into municipal bonds, you were able to generate more in interest income than the company did in revenue. Let me repeat that one more time because it sounds crazy. Back then, things got so crazy that you could, if you had the same amount of money, you had two piles of cash, and you can take the value of a company like Cisco, which had 7 billion shares, $8 billion, $80 a share. It was worth $560 billion back then. But here's the rub. It was only doing 20 billion in revenue. So it was worth 560 billion, doing 20 billion in revenue. Now I computed it had to grow at 90% a year for the next decade to justify 560 billion. And guess what? It didn't do it, folks. It didn't grow by 90% a year for the next 10 years. Stock went from 82, it dropped to like 7, dropped 90%. Now, the reason why I'm bringing that up is at the same time this happened, you could have bought municipal bonds, risk-free, tax-free bonds. And I think you could have earned about 28 billion at the time. So I would tell people, I go, I'm not that smart, folks. But what I am is I like to use logic, and I like to be like, you know what? People are getting a little silly over here. I think I'm going to go short that. I'd rather just own some bonds over here. And doing nothing, no employees, no revenue, nothing. I'll make 28 billion a year. Cisco makes 20 billion, but they got to pay everybody. They got to deal with all this craziness. And if they can't do it right, the stock can fall. And that's what ended up happening. That's just one example. Then there was a company called AOL. AOL was a special company. They were going to do online advertising. Sound familiar? Well, the market was efficient. It priced AOL Time Warner at $250 billion. And they said internet marketing is going to be the cat's meow. It's going to make a lot of money. So those companies were driven up to almost $250 billion, which was a huge number back then. Guys, everything's relative, folks. The world's different now than it was 20 years ago. So 250 billion puts you in the camp of like the top 5, 7 companies probably in the world. 250 billion, guess what? AOL just really screwed up. They really messed up in a huge way. And then all of a sudden, a little company called Google came in, and then Netscape came in, and then Netscape ended up being bought out by AOL. But then Google just ate everybody's lunch. And Yahoo was the big kahuna. Yahoo was neck and neck with Google for maybe a year, and then Google just took off, and I think it quadrupled in 1 year. And it just never looked back. So my point is, when something seems too good to be true and it looks like it can only go up, you really have to make sure that you take the time to see if what Bitcoin has, what all these other currencies have, is truly proprietary. Can it change? Can it go into, can anybody else copy it and make their own cryptocurrency? I'll give you an example. Visa is a currency in some respects. It's a quasi currency, I would say. Visa does $10 trillion of transactions on planet Earth, half the size of the United States economy. Around this whole planet, $10 trillion of transactions take place with Visa. Visa is worth $450 billion. I'm not suggesting anybody should buy Visa. I'm just trying to give you some perspective here, folks. Visa is changing currencies worldwide in real time and keeping track of it on $10 trillion a year. Now, when you take Visa and you take MasterCard and you take PayPal and you take Square and you take American Express and you lump them all together, these are the companies that pretty much dominate this planet that we live on with regards to keeping track of transactions in real time, making sure everybody gets their cut, everybody gets paid. So it's like you go to buy something, the person that's getting the money from you, they want to be sure they're getting their money back too, and it's real. And then if you get paid, you want to be sure you're getting your money. And so all these transactions between those companies, all those companies are worth 1.3 trillion. Okay? 1.3 trillion for all those companies. Bitcoin is worth 1 trillion. Now, I'm not a very smart man, but what I would say is if you put a gun to my head and said, Bobby, you have to own Visa, MasterCard, PayPal, Square, and American Express for the next 10, 20 years, or you have to own Bitcoin, I'd be like, there's nothing to think about, folks. Like, I know exactly what I would own, and I know what I would definitely not own. And that simple math of who dominates this planet, because Visa, MasterCard, Square, and everybody else, they might turn around and say, you know what, Bobby, we got the Visa coin. Hey, why not? We're just going to do our own little version of Visa coin. And by the way, hey, Bitcoin, get the hell out of here. MasterCard can do the same thing. And you know, all I'm saying is use some common sense, folks, with what competition does. The technology is there. The central banks are signaling to the world, we are going digital, and it's going to come sooner than you think. That's why it's called central bank digital currency. Go read the paper. Don't assume, Bobby, everything I said today is 100%, whatever, wrong. Just assume it's all wrong. This is all for entertainment purposes, folks. I'm not telling you to buy anything. I'm not telling you to sell anything. And all I could tell you is take the time to go read the stuff for yourself. Read the document. Read about these other companies that I mentioned, and see for yourself why you think Bitcoin might just get to be a bit. It might be a bit of its old self. I think Bitcoin at 53,000 is a level to watch. It wouldn't shock me at all if it was below 5,300 in the next few years at all. It wouldn't shock me at all. And all I can say is I'm not doing anything about that. I'm not going to go long it. I'm not going to go short it. I'm not suggesting anybody does it. I think it's like flipping coins. You know what? If you want to flip coins and you want to play that game, that's your call. But I don't like to call it. I don't like to flip a coin and just be like, I want to play a game of how many times a coin's going to be heads or tails. That's not what I like to do. And I think that you should think twice about doing that with your money. Whenever you're doing any of this stuff, people that try to tell you it's a sure thing, they're probably not regulated. You should look into that, because if you made these comments the way they do with such certainty of exactly thinking they know what's going to happen, it's reckless, it's dangerous, and it should be criminal, frankly, when people make those statements. I'm telling you, I have no legal opinion about this. I'm telling you what money is supposed to be in theory. I'm telling you that there's other publicly traded companies that you can pull up and look at this information for yourself. Here, I'm actually going to put the tickers in here. Visa is V, MA is MasterCard, SQ is Square, AXP is American Express. And what was the last one I said? I said Visa, Square, MasterCard, and PayPal, PYPL. Okay. And you look at those companies, go pull it up on Google Finance, pull it up on MarketWatch, and add up the market cap of all those companies, and you'll see that, wow, I guess Bobby's, he was a little off. It's not 1.3 trillion. It's 1.29 trillion. I don't know. It's somewhere around 1.3 trillion, give or take $50 billion, which isn't much by the standards of the volatility of Bitcoin. So with that being said, please feel free to read the report. I posted it, BIS, There was testimony today by the Bank of International Settlements individual, as well as Deutsche Bank, and the Financial Times person was the moderator. And then there was also one other person on that. It was Deutsche Bank, Bank of International, and Powell. And so the Federal Reserve Chairman, they were all talking about it. I got news for you, folks. I like keeping my life simple. I like using Visa. I like using my debit cards. I think the fees are too high, but I will gladly use Visa and MasterCard and my debit card and any other things that rely on the U.S. monetary system over Bitcoin for the foreseeable future. And I will gladly use those systems, especially when they go to a digital format in which I can get instantaneous payment and cut out the middle people that are paid with the processing fees. So with that, I hope you guys find it useful. Interest rates did rebound a little bit. Tech stocks have gone up a little bit with rates rallying. I stand by what I've been saying, and I'm not saying the market's going to sell off. I told I've made one thing clear. Everybody who's calling for a massive crash, when everybody's leaning on the same side and everybody thinks something really bad's going to happen, it seems as though the market likes to make, disappoint everybody, larger numbers of people. There's a big saying about that. It's like the market waits to make a fool out of as many people as it possibly can in both directions. So do your own work or hire someone who will do the work for you. Be prudent with your money. Make sure you're only taking the risk that you should. If you don't know how much risk you should take, consult with a professional. Feel free to contact Preactive Investments. It's my company. Feel free to reach out. We're more than happy to talk to you and explain what it is that we do that's different with managing your money, and how we try to use math and logic to making the investment decisions we make on behalf of clients and so forth. So with that, I hope you guys have a wonderful evening, and you look into all these things that I just talked about. Look into all of them and put them into Excel, folks. Take a spreadsheet, punch them in, look at the revenue, American Express. Oh, one other thing I'm going to put down for you guys to look into. Just go to this thing called the SEC.gov. If you go to this SEC.gov, I just typed it in there, and you pull in the filings. You could pull the 10Qs. Hold on a second. 10Q, 10K, and just pull the filings down of these companies that I mentioned and just read them. You don't have to read the whole document. Just skim it and go read about the business description. If you don't have time to read the whole document, just read the first 5 pages and read about what these companies are doing. And they sound unbelievable. And they probably sound better than the hype that some people give to these cryptocurrencies. That's just my take, because they're doing some amazing stuff too, but they just don't have people promoting it like that, because in the financial markets that are in reality, this stuff is traded a little differently. And for everybody out there who says, Bobby, you don't understand, this time is different, I'm going to tell you the same thing I've said time and time again. AOL dropped 80%. Cisco dropped 80, 90%. All these companies go back to the tech bubble of 99, 2000. Those who fail to look at history definitely seem to repeat it. And I think that it should be interesting to see if history repeats itself with Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. And I'm just going to type this here. 53,000. Actually, I'll just make it 333 because I like that number. 53,333 is the number that I would watch to see if any fireworks go off on this company, or not this company, this digital artwork called cryptocurrency, aka Bitcoin. It'll be interesting to watch. It's just for entertainment people, purposes. People, I have no opinion to buy or short this thing, and I am not doing anything with any client money nor my own money with Bitcoin. If something changes and I do on a personal level, I will never do it on behalf of clients. They have to pull the trigger themselves. I will gladly let people know if I decide to do something with it. But right now, I have no intention, nor am I advising anybody do anything with it. I don't like to pick up nickels in front of steamrollers. Anyways, I hope you guys have a wonderful evening.